dedicated to everything Wake Forest athletics. And yes, folks, I am joining the shirtless bros brigade, I guess is what we're calling them. Wake Forest student section, topless dudes, just living the dream, celebrating life. And I wanted to just, for at least a second, join you guys. And I am going to put my shirt back on after that just so that I can have some dignity on this show. But what a week, man. What a weekend. As you can see, it's just me here today. No Shane. Hopefully, he might be able to drop in, but we got no promises. There's a lot to talk about. We've got Wake Forest first exhibition game in basketball versus Coach Forbes' old school, East Tennessee State University. We've got the SMU win, and we've got FSU, the Seminoles, coming up, playing them this Saturday at 7:30 Eastern Time in Tallahassee with all the rednecks. So it's going to be quite a week, and there is a lot to talk about. But first, again, shout out to the shirtless dudes who stayed in the student section, didn't leave, didn't turn off the TV like I did. Yes, I turned the game off against SMU in disgust after the review of the Damon Claiborne fumble. When we should have, and Coach Dickert admitted that we should have just centered the ball, taken the knee 2 or 3 times, and then kicked the field goal. Instead, we fumble on first down. I turned the game off in complete disgust. I'm just like, I cannot watch this. And I just go in the other room, assume we've lost, start to try to move on with my day. About 5 minutes later, my brother calls me, and I shared this on Facebook, but in case you haven't heard the story. So I'm assuming we lost. I'm so freaking mad. I am disgusted as far as I'm concerned. It was a bad call. I thought Damon's shin was clearly down. And I thought the refs were taking away another win from us, and we're going to take us from a team that should have been, 6-1 to a team that was going to fall to 4-3. But instead, 5 minutes later, my brother calls me, and he's like freaking out. And he's like, ah, and I'm just like, ah, back to him. And for a while, we're just screaming at each other. But it took a second for me to realize, I just start rambling off all the things that went wrong. The coaches should have known, to just center the ball. Don't even put the ball in any risk. I'm so caught up on all the missed opportunities and the fact that the refs screwed us over yet again that I don't realize for a little moment that Shane and I are expressing two different emotions. I start to sense that he is freaking out because he's happy, and I'm still freaking out because I'm devastated. And at some point in the conversation, it took about 2 or 3 minutes for the something to break where he was like, dude, we won. We won, right? And I was just like, me and my dad both were just because I had him on speakerphone, we're like, nah, we didn't win. I couldn't believe him. I thought he was it's really just one of those moments where it's so surreal that you can't even grasp it. And then he had to explain exactly what happened. And then I'd go back and rewatch from the point I turned off, knowing, after, talking to him, believing him, that somehow we actually won the game. And I went from utter devastation to being in tears a few minutes later as I watched Coach Dickert's post-game press conference, and I heard his words like right after the game on the radio broadcast were even more just like emotional and amazing. And so what a game, it just shows like I'm traumatized as a Wake fan. I couldn't do it. And I apologize for that. I will never give up on the Deeks again until it's over. Every time I watch a game with my mom as a Wake fan and things start looking bad, I start freaking out. I'm like, it's over. We're going to blow this up. We're going to blow this. And she always says, Josh, it ain't over until it's over. And I learned the hard way by not getting to watch like in real time this thing happen where we get the stop. Deshaun Purdy, his throw to Cameron Johnson and the way Cameron Johnson had to adjust in the middle of that play to catch that ball. Just an amazing play. And then to spike it. And then Connor Calvert, I gave you a C grade for the season. You immediately, in one exam, went from a C to an A plus just for getting us that win. What an experience. What a game. It's hard to say much more about it. We won a game where we had 5 turnovers, and just the chaos of some of those moments were incredible. I'm going to come back to football here in a second, but first, let's start with the basketball, and then we'll come back. And I made a claim about Wake Forest defense that I want to try to defend. But before I do that, let's talk about basketball just very briefly. Okay, so we had our exhibition game, and for whatever reason, the ACC network, ESPN, whoever's in charge of all that stuff decided last minute to not put us on TV. So I don't know about you guys, but I was not able to watch it. Can't even really find a box score. But thank you to the Wake Forest Athletics men's basketball website for summarizing this game. It looks like it went pretty well. We won by 19 points. So we beat East Tennessee State University 89-70. Let me make the screen a little bigger so you guys can see it. Hold on, let me go over there. And it looks like I said, it looks like it went really well. And, giving up 70 points, that might not sound great, but, we were led by senior guard Makai Mason, the transfer from Washington, who, put up 24 points on 8 for 12 shooting, including 5 for 9 from 3. And like we said in the basketball preview, like Mason is not just like a catch and shoot player. He can also create a little bit off the dribble. Some, evidence of that is that he also had 4 assists. So what a game, what a start for Mason, looking like the 40% plus 3-point shooter that we need him to be, and also like a secondary connector, ball handler. But it looked like the rest of the squad came to play as well. The heart of the team, Trayvon Spillers, 17 points, 11 rebounds, like double-double. Trayvon, I think you're going to have a big year, my fella. And as far as like the leadership of the basketball team this year, Trayvon, like his grandfather commented on the last video, is going to be the heart, the brain, the soul of the team. And so for him to come out with 17 and 11, that's a great start. Juke had 15. Miles Colvin had 15. Nate Calmise continued what, Coach Forbes has kind of harped on in practice about wanting him to shoot more. It looked like he just wanted to pass the ball. And Nate, if you want to average like 5 points and 12 assists, that will get you to the league averaging 12 assists a game. in major conference basketball in college. So do that. Omaha had 9 points, 5 rebounds in 22 minutes. The biggest thing for me is we were efficient shooting. And after what happened last year, I know it's just one game. I know it's against East Tennessee State, but it's good to see us shoot almost 50% from the floor, to shoot 45% from three, to shoot 80% from the line. And, this was all without Cooper Schweiger, who I think it's his ankle. He's got an ankle going on right now. So we're hoping he's going to be out for the first few games at least, hoping, praying, crossing our fingers to get him back for the Michigan game. If we can get him back for the Michigan game, that's going to be a big deal. But I'm really looking forward to watching Wake's first game against American. I think it's on the 3rd or the 2nd, can't remember. But just really looking forward to watching that, actually getting to see our boys in action. So it looks like basketball is off to a good start. And so now let's talk some more about football. So I made a claim. I made a pretty strong claim last week after the SMU game. And I'll share my screen to talk a little bit more about it. This is the wrong screen. This is our depth chart. We also need to talk about quarterback. You guys can tell I am ad-libbing here. I'm not used to not having just like my slideshow and like everything clear. All right, here we go. All right, so I made a claim last week after the SMU game, and this is a response after let's go to my first tweet, because my first tweet was the first part of it. Where are we here? Okay, here was the first tweet. So, serious question. How many potential NFL players are playing on this Wake Forest football defense right now? I would say at least 9. And I should have clarified when I said 9 that, I'm not talking about 9 first, second round picks. To me, anyone in the NFL is someone who is on practice squad, who is a backup, who might get signed as an undrafted free agent, late round picks. But I would say Devon Patterson is a lock pretty much to get NFL consideration. Nick Anderson, you could argue, used to be able to argue his size, but he's up to almost 200 pounds now. I don't know about his deep range and his speed, but I can't think of why an NFL coach wouldn't want to have a tackling machine like Nick Anderson on their special teams as a backup strong safety, a guy who has just the highest football IQ you're going to be able to have. He's going to be in the right spot every play. He's going to make solo tackles that no one else can make. I can't see why Nick Anderson won't get consideration. Karan Prunty, like Coach Dickert said, he's an all ACC candidate at corner right now. He's got great size, 6'2". He's a little older, 23, 24 years old, probably by the time he would be drafted. But we've seen even last year some guys around that age with a similar profile in a breakout season get drafted. Aiden Hall, Quincy Bryant, Aiden Hall is not a senior, so I would expect him to come back for one more year, boost his profile even more. But I feel like he's a younger version of Quincy Bryant. I feel like Quincy Bryant, because of his speed, He does lack height a little bit. He's only 6 feet tall, but because of his PFF pass defense grades, the way he's going sideline to sideline as a tackler with elite speed, he's going to get a look in the NFL. Frank the Tank Cusano, only a redshirt freshman, probably 2 years away from even thinking about it. But from what he's shown so far, and he does have the height at 6'2", guy might be getting some NFL consideration. And then our three pass rushers, all juniors, don't have to come out this year. Imagine another year of development from Gatkuth, another year of development from Hardy, another year of strength and development for Kershke, and that's 9. And I said, am I crazy? A lot of people on Facebook told me I was straight up crazy. It wasn't such a backlash here on X. I mean, this got 6.5K impressions, got the most impressions I've really had on any tweet I've ever made. I'm a small channel, I only do this for fun part time, but I just feel like, people were telling me, Josh, you do know that to be able to make the NFL, you got to be the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. And it's like, yes, I know that. I've been following this game for quite a while, like I can realize that. But at the same time, the way Wake's defense is playing, and shout out to Cam Lemons DeBro over at 24/7 Sports. I think it's Deacons Illustrated. He had a chart that showed if you adjust for the level of competition, this defense is playing in the country. And so, the question is, how good is this defense? And I think we're going to find out a lot this week. We're playing FSU, and FSU is on a 4-game losing streak. But don't let that fool you completely. Let's see how they got here, and then we're going to kind of talk about it. So, first game of the year was actually September 6th. East Texas A&M, never even heard of them, 77-3. And then Kent State, 66-10. Looks like things are rolling. But then, they take a L in overtime to Virginia. No shame in that. Lose 28-22 to Miami. No shame in that. Pittsburgh lose 34-31. No shame in that. Lose to Stanford 20-13. And it was at the point that they lost to Stanford that the fan base was just done. The fan base was like, we're done. It's over. Time to wrap things up. We need to fire Mike Norvell, and we need to start anew. And I'm not here trying to make excuses for Mike Norvell. Like, I don't think he's like the greatest coach in the world. I think something that showed me a lot was the year they got snubbed on the national championship game. They played Georgia in their bowl game, and they had the undefeated record. Remember, their quarterback Travis went down, and they still had to play a bowl game against Georgia. Kirby Smart had his entire Georgia Bulldog football team, minus 1 or 2 players, show up to play that bowl game, despite them being Georgia, not making the college football playoff, which that year it was a 4-year playoff. But Florida State was the opposite. Florida State had half the team opt out, and no one showed up to play. And Georgia beat them by 60 points. And it was an embarrassment to their program. And to me, it was an embarrassment to their coach, because you would like to think, as a leader of men, the coach would be able to instill such pride as to say, yes, guys, I know some of you are looking out for your next steps now. We don't get to play in the college football playoff, but we do have a chance to go up and beat an SEC team in Georgia. And because we care about each other, because we are built in the dark, something like Coach Dickert would be able to say, let's show up and play this game. But the exact opposite ended up happening. So I just think Coach Norvell is on the hot seat. As soon as he loses this game to Wake Forest, I think he's done. The athletic director over there tried to say they were going to make further evaluations at the end of the season. The fan base did not seem to like that. But they've dealt with some injuries, if we're being completely honest. Their quarterback, Thomas Castellanos, was injured near the end of the game against Stanford. They've lost their best receiver in that game for a period of time, the 6'6" Deuce Alexander. But it looks like those guys are going to be back for us. I mean, it's not 100%, but it looks like they're going to be back for us. So let's take a look at their depth chart that they've released for this game. And I'm just going to go through it a little bit and we can talk about like what this means. So, I would say if I was a betting man, it's a 90% chance Castellanos plays. Now, Castellanos is a dual threat, very impressive dual threat quarterback. He will also put the ball in danger. He will also turn the ball over. And I think our defense can take some really good opportunities from that. They've, as far as running back, they've got a kind of squad of running backs. They lost their best running back for the season. I can't remember his name. Sawchuk. Yeah, Gavin Sawchuk. He had been leading them in rushing. I don't know if he's out for the rest of the year, but he's out for a while at least. Randy Pittman had been injured. He's back. Deuce Robinson had been injured. He's back. Squirrel White had been playing at less than 100%. Clearly, assuming with the bye week, coming off the bye week, he's going to be healthy again. And then on defense, they had been missing their star cornerback, Jabril Rawls. He's going to be back for this game, it appears. Earl Little Jr., who's kind of their version of Nick Anderson, is probably their best player on defense. So we got to watch out for him. And then, up front, you've got some guys. Darrell Jackson Jr. is an NFL prospect who's going to be taken in the first 3 rounds. James Williams is a good player. So they have some ball players. They absolutely have some ball players. And, I think what is the truth versus what is perception right now regarding Florida State is the truth is the underlying numbers are kind of scary. So let's just go through it. So their offense is averaging, and I know part of the averaging the points is that they were scoring 60 and 70 points at the beginning of the season, but they're averaging 33 and a half points per game. That's 26th in the nation. They're averaging 489 yards per game. Guess what that is? That's 3rd in the nation. They're averaging 236 rushing yards per game. That's 8th in the nation, and 252 passing yards per game, which is 39th in the nation. So if you look at any offensive category, they are in the top 40 in the nation in those said categories. And then if we look at defense, Like their defense is not as good as Wake Forest defense. We've got 9 NFL players on our defense. But they are only allowing 22.6 points per game. That's 53rd in the country. They're only averaging to allow 349 total yards per game, 37th in the country. Again, just like SMU, their run defense is their strength. So we're going to have to go at it again, where with our offensive line, we're going to have to play better because they only give up 120 rushing yards per game, which is good for 29th in the country. And then their weakness is giving up the passing game. So, what is that going to mean for us? And, I think one very important thing for us to look at and where we're going to see Coach Dickert's chops here is the depth chart. And the question at the most important position in football, which is, of course, um, quarterback, right? All right, let's try to look at this image. I'll try to make it bigger. It's probably hard to see. But basically, if you look at the depth chart, you're going to see there's not any changes except for one. So, one notable thing is Any Falai. He seems to be okay, at least according to the depth chart. I know he went to the medical tent and was out for most of the second half against SMU. Good to know he is not injured in a way such that he won't be able to play. Hopefully, he will. I think Micah Mays and Burkhalter said, "Shut up, Josh." They were making plays. They were making big plays against SMU. But Robbie Ashford is listed as the starter. And so Robbie's listed as the starter. So what does that mean for us? What does that mean? That means that Coach Dickert, Coach Izell have looked at the tape, the tape against all the opponents so far this season. They've looked at what Purdy can do as a passer. I think if I had to guess, I would say they believe that Purdy is the superior passer, but not so much that they are willing to give up the potential of what Robbie can do with his legs and his arm combined. And especially in scenarios where we can't run the ball very well otherwise, right? There's something about having a dual threat quarterback which allows the run game to open up in ways that it won't if you don't have a mobile quarterback. Think of the Lamar Jackson effect. And I'm not saying Robbie Ashford is Lamar Jackson. I'm just saying every running back who has ever played with Lamar Jackson at the professional level has averaged over 5 yards a carry. And there have been many years, including this year, where their offensive line has a lot of injuries or it's suspect. And I think our offensive line is pretty good at pass blocking, but in terms of run blocking, we are still struggling. And so I think Coach Dickert and Coach Izell have made a calculated decision that Robbie Ashford, because when healthy, because of what he can do with his legs, gives us the best chance to win against Florida State. You can't look over the fact that, and they weren't all on Purdy, but some of them were. 3 of them were the turnovers from Purdy, some of the just ball handling just looked really out of sorts, just on some very basic stuff. And I think going to Robbie is a sign that, hey, we've got to be able to be dynamic offensively if we're going to beat Florida State. Because as good as our defense is, and I think they're really freaking good, I don't think Florida State's as bad as their record. I don't think they're as bad as having lost 9 straight ACC games. I think Florida State has the talent to make this a very interesting ball game. And I think that we are on the road, and we played well on the road. But I would say, in terms of a prediction, for me, this game is a toss up. And so let me look at the actual odds. That's one thing I did forget to look at. Let's go odds for Wake Forest versus Florida State football. Okay, so Florida State versus Wake Forest. Is this recent? Let me make sure. Yep, this is recent. All right, so my goodness. Guys, we're 10-point underdogs. I'm taking my shirt back off, man. We're 10-point underdogs, bro. We're 10-point underdogs. Hold on. Let me share this. Let me make sure this is correct. I might be losing it. I might just be losing it. According to Fox Sports, we are 10-point underdogs in Tallahassee. The over-under is 51 and a half. And their prediction, whatever, is Florida State 30, Wake Forest 22. We're 10-point underdogs? Like, I could see 3. But look, the Florida State Seminoles, 3 and 4, are 10-point favorites as they host the 5 and 2 Deacs. So, I can bitch and moan about that and take my shirt off. What Vegas is telling us is they think Florida State is actually pretty good. And they're hating on us. And they don't think we're for real. This is a message then. This has morphed into a message. How dare they? How dare they make us 10-point underdogs? Wake Nation, this cannot stand. Players, this cannot stand. Shirtless bros, stand up for the Deacs. We gotta win this game now. We gotta win this game now. I need someone to share this with the fellas. I need someone to share this with the homies. They can't do us like this, fellas. We gotta win this game. All right, my prediction. I'm gonna make a prediction. Wake Forest goes down to Tallahassee and beats Florida State 28-14. It's not even close. We play our best game yet overall. They commit penalties just like we have in the past. But this week, we stopped committing all those penalties. We finally cleaned them up, and Wake Forest gets the win. We get the W by 14 points, and Vegas, the coaches poll, the AP polls, finally put some respect on our names. Finally put some respect on our names. All right, that's all I got for today. Wake Nation 21, shirtless bros all over the nation, just rooting for the Deacs. I'm sorry that Shane's Shane is glad he didn't have to be here for this embarrassment of a stream where I didn't have my slides and I was just kind of freestyling. Wake has 9 future NFL players on their defense. I don't care what anyone says. The basketball team's going to ball. We've been right about all this stuff so far. Go Deeks. I'll see you next time. We'll try to hit you with a post game analysis. And remember, my prediction is we win 28-14 against the Noles. The Noles are fakers. We're the Wakers. Let's go, baby. Go Deeks.